Welcome, traveler. The mist is thick tonight, software slow. It wraps around the trees like a memory and hushes the world until only breath remains. You've found your way to the quiet again, a place of whispers and story, where nothing rushes and the old gods still listen from the shadows. Tonight, we bring you a legend from Japan, a tale older than any shrine, spoken in hushes beside lantern light and carved into the roots of sacred mountains. It is a story of a monster, but not the kind with fire and fury. This one moves with the mist. It drinks from the rivers, and it has 8 heads, each one dreaming of the next girl it will take. This is the story of Yamata no Orochi, the great serpent of the mountains, and the god who came down from the sky to end its hunger. But it's not the battle that matters. It's the silence before the battle, the slow breath of a village forgotten by the world, the prayers no one answers, and a girl who whispers goodbye to her sisters, one by one. Settle in. Let your shoulders drop. Let the old wind pass through you. And before we begin, if you enjoy these quiet journeys through myth and memory, tap the like button or subscribe for more sleep stories from around the world. And if there's a story you'd like us to tell, from your culture, your childhood, or your dreams, leave a note in the comments below. We're always listening. But now, step quietly. Don't disturb the river. Let's begin. You came into the village just as the mist rolled in. No one greeted you. No dogs barked. Only the faint clatter of a wooden door closing, and the hush of something older than wind settling on your skin. The path was narrow, carved from worn stone and damp earth. It wound between rice fields gone fallow. No crops, only pale stalks left to rot in still water. The village looked abandoned, but you could feel eyes watching from behind the paper walls, not with suspicion, with fear, as if they'd seen strangers before, and knew how often strangers leave with nothing, or don't leave at all. You found shelter in a broken tea house, no fire inside, just a mat and the smell of damp wood and silence. You listened to the wind press against the shutters and tried to sleep, but sometime in the night, you heard it, the sound of bells, not temple bells, small ones, software carried by the ankles of someone walking barefoot through fog. You went to the door, didn't open it, just listened. There were footsteps in the distance, then a splash, then nothing. In the morning, the fog still hadn't lifted. You stepped outside and saw, at the edge of the village, a little shrine, tucked between 2 dying cedar trees. Its offerings had been left untouched for weeks. A cracked bowl of sake, 3 coins, a faded ribbon pinned to the wood. Above it, carved into the frame, a symbol you recognized. Orochi, a name so old it has no true translation, only meanings whispered around it. Serpent, god, curse. You asked the man who ran the rice store what it meant. He didn't answer. He just looked past you and said, "If the river speaks, you don't listen." You asked again, about the shrine, about the fog, about the bells. This time, he answered, softly, "It comes with the mist. It drinks from the river. It eats what we love, and no one stops it." That night, the mist came earlier. The air was heavy, your skin damp. Even the fire wouldn't stay lit. You heard the bells again, but this time you followed them, past the cedar trees, past the shrine, down the narrow path toward the river's edge. And there, in the clearing, you saw her. A girl standing barefoot in the water, anklets shining in the dark, a pale ribbon tied in her hair. She didn't speak. She didn't run. She just looked at you. And slowly, silently, raised one finger to her lips, then turned and disappeared into the fog. You heard his voice before you saw him, not loud, not commanding, just a low hum, like someone singing to the earth through their teeth. You found him kneeling beside the river. His hair was dark, streaked with silver, tangled in places where the wind had played with it too long. His robes were worn, not royal, but there was something about the way he breathed, like he didn't need to, like he did it for your comfort, not his. He noticed you, didn't look surprised, just said, "You followed the mist, didn't you?" You asked him who he was. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he dipped his fingers into the water, let it flow through his hands, like memory. "They used to call me Susanoo," he said. You knew the name. Everyone did. A god of storms, brother to the sun, once cast from heaven for his anger, his wildness, his grief. But the man in front of you didn't look angry. He looked tired. He rose slowly, joints creaking like old bamboo. "You're not from here," he said. You shook your head. "Neither am I," he smiled. "Not really." You asked him about the girl in the water, the bells, the fog. He nodded. "I've seen her too. She's the last one. And the thing that waits, it knows." You walked with him along the edge of the river. He told you stories, not the kind in scrolls or temples, the quiet ones, the ones only gods tell each other after the stars are asleep. He told you about falling, not like lightning, but like mist, a slow descent from sky to soil, from divinity to dirt. "The heavens don't like when you question the way they shine," he said. So they cast him out, and he wandered, first through mountains, then coasts, then villages too small for maps. "And then I found this place," he said, "and I found her. Her name was Kushinada, the youngest of 8 daughters, the last one left. The others are gone," Susanoo said. "Taken." You asked what took them. He didn't answer at first, just stopped walking and looked out at the river. The fog was beginning to rise again. "It has 8 heads," he said softly, "each one hungrier than the last. It comes with the mist, always, once a year. For centuries, the people leave offerings, sake, prayers, ribbons, daughters. And the serpent drinks." You asked him why he hadn't stopped it. He looked at you, almost amused. "I am not what I was," he said. "I can't simply unmake it with a thought. But I can think." He sat down beside a mossy stone, took a jug from his side. Not wine, not water. You smelled it, sharp, sweet. "Sake. It's not the kind you drink to forget," he said. "It's the kind you drink to confuse a monster." You asked what he meant. He smiled, not kindly, but deeply, like someone who's lived too long in silence. "The beast has grown careless," he said. "It feeds, and then it sleeps. It never wonders, never expects. But if we give it something strong enough to dull its heads, we may have a chance." You looked at the jug again, then at the fog, rising thicker now, curling through the trees like fingers. "How long do we have?" you asked. "Until dusk," he said. "Then it comes." You sat with him for a while longer, didn't speak, didn't move, just listened to the soft gurgle of the river and the slow rustle of leaves as something far too large stirred in the hills beyond. "The first 7 daughters," he whispered. "They didn't run. They walked to the river, one by one. It prefers that, the quiet ones." You asked what Kushinada would do. He looked away, didn't answer, but you could see something in his face, a crack in the godhood, a small human grief. "If we're going to stop it," he finally said, "we'll need more than prayers. We'll need patience, precision, and 8 barrels. And so, as the mist thickened and the bells grew quiet, you followed a fallen god into the woods, not to find a weapon, but to build a trap. The serpent was coming, and this time it would be greeted properly. You met her near the edge of the trees. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't crying. She wasn't afraid. She was braiding reeds by the riverbank with hands too calm for someone whose name was already written in a monster's breath. She didn't look up when you arrived, just said softly, "You're the one following Susanoo." Her hair was dark, woven with a single white ribbon, the same kind you saw at the shrine, tied to old prayers, tied to girls already gone. You said her name, Kushinada. She nodded, didn't smile, didn't flinch. "I know what's coming," she said. "I've known since I was small. We all did. First, it was my eldest sister, then the next. One every year when the mist rolls in." She stopped braiding, placed the half-finished bundle in her lap and stared out at the water. "It doesn't roar," she whispered. "It doesn't crash through trees. It arrives like steam, like silence, like sleep. And when it takes you, you don't scream. You just go." You didn't know what to say. What words comfort someone born into sacrifice? What does courage even mean when you never had a choice? You sat beside her, not speaking, just listened. The reeds swayed gently in the breeze. A frog chirped once, then fell quiet again. "Susanoo says it can be stopped," you said finally. She laughed, not cruelly, just tired. "He always says that," she replied. "He said it before my third sister was taken. And before my sixth." She picked up a pebble and turned it over in her palm. "He's kind," she added, "but kindness doesn't stop serpents." You looked at her, really looked. She was younger than you expected. 17, maybe. Too young to carry 7 funerals in her spine. Too old to believe in rescue. She turned to you then, eyes clear, voice soft. "Do you know what the worst part is?" You shook your head. "The waiting," she said. "You try not to count the days, but you do. You try not to wonder if maybe you'll be different, but you won't. You start to feel like a story someone already finished. Sometimes," she said, "I think I'm already gone." You wanted to say something, anything, to tell her it wasn't fair, to tell her she deserved more, but she already knew, and she wasn't asking for comfort, just honesty. "He's building something," you offered. "A trap with sake, 8 barrels. She nodded slowly, didn't ask how it worked, didn't ask if it would succeed. "If it does," she said, "then maybe the next daughter, somewhere, won't have to walk alone. And if it doesn't," she shrugged. "I was going anyway." She stood, brushed the reeds from her lap. "Come," she said. "I want to show you something." You followed. She led you to the edge of the woods, not where the villagers walked, but deeper, where the trees grew thick and strange. There, among the roots, she showed you 7 stones, each one marked with a ribbon, weathered by wind. "We buried what we could find," she whispered. "Sometimes just a shoe, sometimes nothing. But we remembered them anyway. You felt it then, not fear, but something quieter. The weight of love that never had a chance to finish speaking. The ache of names whispered only once a year. You knelt beside the stones, touched the moss, listened. Kushinada didn't cry. She only placed her unfinished braid beside the 7th stone. "If I don't come back," she said, "tell him I'm not angry. Just tired." You walked her back in silence. The mist was starting again, thicker now, closer to the ground. The first bell rang, distant, trembling. She didn't flinch. "It's always 3 bells," she said. Then the eyes. At the edge of the village, she turned to you, smiled just a little. If this is the year it ends, make sure someone remembers why. Then she stepped into the dark, toward the barrels, toward the sake, toward the trap that might work or might not. And you were left behind, not to save her, but to witness. You couldn't see the stars that night. Even when you looked up, there was only mist, low, rolling, swallowing the village from the sky downward. No birds, no wind, just the sound of your own breath and the creak of wood as someone or something shifted nearby. The barrels had been set in place hours ago, 8 of them arranged in a wide arc along the riverbank, each sealed with rope soaked in sweet sake. The air smelled like plums and waiting. Susanoo stood just beyond the trees, still as bark. He said nothing. He had said very little since Kushinada walked away. You didn't ask why. You understood. Some silences weren't meant to be broken, especially not tonight. Then came the first bell. You didn't hear it so much as feel it, low, metallic, like a chime deep underwater. Kushinada turned her face toward the sound. She was already in place, hair braided, hands folded, eyes open, steady. She wasn't bound. She wasn't guarded. She didn't need to be. The serpent always knew which girl to take. The fog thickened, and the second bell came. Louder this time. This one echoed. It clung to the wood of the trees and made the water shiver. You felt it behind your ribs. A trembling, not fear. Something older. Something that remembered teeth. Then silence again. Not a peaceful one. A silence with weight, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. And then, the eyes. At first, they were only shapes in the mist. You blinked, thinking you were seeing tricks of moonlight, reflections on damp leaves. But they moved. Each pair glowed slightly. Red, gold, green. Not bright, but enough. Enough to know they were watching. And they blinked. Out of sync. You counted them without meaning to. 8. Moving slowly, stretching wide. They didn't rush, didn't leap, didn't roar. They moved like a tide, inevitable, curling around the land. Each head drifted from the mist like a branch from a great, rotting tree. Scales dark and wet, horns twisted like old roots, mouths just slightly open, enough to let the mist curl in. The villagers didn't scream, they never did. They were inside, doors closed, hands clasped, eyes shut. Only you and Susanoo watched, and Kushinada, waiting beneath the cedar tree. The serpent approached the first barrel, its head tilted like a dog sniffing something new. Then it drank, slowly, deeply. The neck moved like a river swallowing itself. Then the second head came, then the third. Susanoo nodded once, not triumphantly, just as if a plan was unfolding on time. You still couldn't see all of it, but you could feel the shape of it now. The way the trap had been built, not of weapons, but rhythm. The way the serpent fell into the rhythm without knowing. Each head found a barrel, each head drank. Their breathing grew heavier, slower, like storm clouds filling with sleep instead of thunder. But not all of them, not yet. There was one head still moving, the 8th, the last. It didn't drink, it didn't follow the others. It moved toward her, toward Kushinada. She didn't move, didn't cry. She bowed her head gently, as if welcoming what came. You moved to step forward, instinct, but Susanoo raised a hand, not to stop you with force, to remind you this was part of it. She had to wait, until the others slept, until the last one saw her, until the final head chose, and in choosing became vulnerable. The 8th head crept closer. Its breath wilted the grass. Its tongue flicked once, then twice. She raised her eyes to it, calm, unwavering, and the serpent paused. Then it opened its mouth and lowered it toward her. And in that moment, the moment between breath and bite, the mist pulsed. You didn't see Susanoo move. You only saw the flicker of something old in his hands. Not metal, not fire. A memory of lightning shaped into a blade. The eighth head turned. It saw him. It roared. Not loud, but the sound cracked the sky. And in that single heartbeat of sound, Susanoo struck. You never saw the blade, not clearly, just a glint in the fog. Not silver, not steel, a color that didn't belong to the earth, like moonlight, distilled. The eighth head reared back, fangs bared, but it was slow now, drunk on the scent of sake, drugged by its own certainty. It had never needed to defend itself. Why would it? Nothing had ever tried. The strike wasn't violent. It was graceful, surgical, a sweep of motion so precise it looked accidental, as if the mist itself had turned sharp. The blade slipped under the jaw, past the throat, deep into the base of the neck, and the head fell. No scream, just a hiss, long and wet and ancient, like the air leaving a dying world. The body collapsed slowly, one coil at a time. The other 7 heads wavered, still swaying in their drunken half-sleep, eyes dull, mouths open. None noticed the 8th was gone. None stirred. The trap was working. Susanoo stood still, chest rising only slightly. He didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. Instead, he began to hum, low, almost inaudible, a tone without words. At first, you thought it was nothing, just a breath caught in his throat, a stray sound made by accident, but it grew, not louder, deeper, like something old being remembered, a song. The heads twitched. They turned slightly, as if listening. Their bodies didn't resist. They had been fed, and now they were being lulled. It wasn't magic, exactly. It was memory, a god's memory. A lullaby sung to storms before they formed, to rivers before they carved valleys, to trees before they decided to bloom. You didn't recognize the words. There were no words, but you felt them, like the way you feel water before it rains. Kushinada watched from beneath the tree, hands still folded. She didn't move, didn't blink, just breathed. One breath for each note of the song. The wind changed direction. The fog began to spin, slowly, around the heads like a cradle. Then Susanoo moved again. Not quickly, not like a warrior. He stepped toward the second head, still nodding drowsily beside the barrel. He raised the blade, lowered it gently, and another head fell. No roar, no chaos, just the soft rhythm of something old being unmade. By the time he reached the third head, the song had shifted, still soft, still low, but now with a different current beneath it, a sorrow, like goodbye, stretched across centuries. You understood then. This wasn't just about killing a monster. It was a funeral, a burial of something that had haunted the land so long. Even the gods had forgotten how to speak its name without trembling. The fourth head fell, then the fifth. Each time, the serpent grew smaller, not in size, in presence, like fog lifting from your shoulders, like waking up from a bad dream and realizing you've forgotten the worst of it. The sixth and seventh went easily. They didn't even twitch. The sake was still strong in them, the lullaby still echoing. And then, only one remained. Not the eighth. That had fallen first. This one had been the second to drink. But it was the largest, and its eyes were still open, watching. It hadn't moved during the song. It hadn't flinched during the others' deaths. It had waited, and now it turned toward you. The wind stopped, not slowed, stopped. The trees stilled. The river went silent. The fog dropped, heavy and wet. You couldn't move, couldn't think. You were no warrior, no god, no weapon. Just a breath held in a world too large. The head moved forward, not fast, but certain. Its tongue flicked once, twice. Then, a hand on your shoulder. Susanoo. It sees you, he said softly, but it remembers me. He stepped between you and the serpent, raised the blade. No song now, only breath, only silence. And then, the final motion. The blade didn't shine this time. It vanished mid-swing, like it had never existed, like it had only ever been a promise. And the final head, the watcher, the elder, the remembering one, fell into the earth with a sound like rain breaking through stone. The fog scattered, not all at once. It faded gently, like incense at the end of a prayer. The grass uncurled. The river sighed. The trees breathed again. You looked at the ground where the serpent had fallen. It didn't bleed. It didn't rot. It simply faded. The body was already turning to soil, and where the final head had struck the earth, something glinted in the dirt. Something sharp. Something beautiful. It was almost too quiet. No birds, no wind, just the soft shift of mist uncurling from the trees, and the faint drip of water falling from a serpent's tooth into the grass. The ground where the final head had fallen was scorched, but not with fire. Something deeper, as if the earth had remembered something painful and shuddered beneath it. You stepped closer, slowly. The soil was damp but warm, and there, among the roots and coiled remnants of scale, something shone. At first it looked like bone, but the light was wrong. Not white, not yellow, something older, a glint like starlight beneath deep water. You brushed away the dirt and found a sword, not just any blade. It pulsed with a kind of stillness, a silence you could feel in your chest. The hilt was wrapped in sea thread, tight, clean, impossible. The metal hummed faintly when you touched it, not in anger, not in hunger, but in recognition. Susanoo knelt beside you, not with reverence, with memory. He didn't reach for the blade. He didn't speak, just looked at it and nodded. So, it was here all along. You asked him what it was. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared into the trees, as if trying to listen backward through time. A gift, he said eventually. Or maybe a warning. They say it was lost in the age before memory, when the gods still argued over who should shape the world. It disappeared in the wars between storms and flame. I thought it gone forever. You looked at the sword again. It didn't feel like a weapon. It felt like a secret someone forgot to bury deep enough. Why would it be inside the serpent, you asked? Because it swallowed it, Susanoo said. Or because it was placed there. He stood slowly. The blade remained on the ground. The serpent was more than hunger, he said. It was what we feared we could not contain. Maybe this sword was made to fight it. Or maybe it created it. Balance and imbalance, dreaming in the same body. You looked at him, a god, but now, strangely, more human than ever. Will you take it? You asked. He shook his head. It's not for me anymore. I've done what I was meant to do, and I was never meant to stay. The wind stirred, not hard, just enough to remind you that it had returned. The forest breathed again. You could hear water moving, and in the distance, somewhere far behind the trees, laughter, children, villagers. The village was waking up. Kushinada stepped through the mist, barefoot, silent. She looked at the body of the serpent, already turning to moss, and then at you, then at the sword. She didn't ask questions. She just stood beside you and let the moment stretch. So, she said softly, it's over. For now, Susanoo said. She didn't cry, didn't smile, just exhaled, slowly, as if she'd been holding her breath since she was born. The three of you stood there, a god, a girl, and a stranger, in the hollow where a monster had ruled for generations. And now there was only silence and the soft gleam of something lost. You didn't take the sword, not at first. It didn't feel like yours. You weren't a hero. You hadn't lifted the blade. You hadn't sung the song that slowed the beast. You were just there, a witness, a thread in the tapestry, a pair of eyes to remember the shape of the silence. But still, your hand reached for it, and when your fingers closed around the hilt, it didn't burn. It didn't resist. It simply settled into your palm, as if it had been waiting not for a warrior, but a keeper. Behind you, the serpent's body had fully vanished. No blood, no bones, only grass, and the faint outline of where its weight had once rested, a scar pressed into the earth like a sigh. The mist was gone too. The village had returned to sound, to light, to breathe. Kushinada walked ahead of you, not rushed, not afraid. She walked as someone who no longer had to count the days. When the three of you returned to the village, no one cheered. But they came, quietly, one by one, not to ask, not to doubt. They knew. They'd felt the shift in the air, heard the silence break. They knew the curse was broken, and they looked at you, not with reverence, but with recognition. You were the outsider, yes, but also the one who stayed, the one who watched, the one who returned to tell them it was safe. Susanoo stood beside the cedar shrine. He ran his hand along the faded wood, looked up at the old ribbons still tied there, brittle now. You should go, he said softly. The land remembers pain too well. When it forgets, it lets you go. You asked him what he meant. He didn't answer, only looked at the mountain and smiled. I'll stay, he said, for a while. There are things still sleeping in the hills. I want to hear what they dream about. Kushinada approached him. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. She simply pressed her forehead gently to his shoulder and whispered something you didn't catch. Then she turned to you. Keep the sword, she said, but don't raise it quickly. It listens, and it remembers. You left before the mist could return. The villagers offered food, warm blankets, a place by the fire. But you knew. Some places you visit only once, and even then, they stay with you longer than you stay with them. You walked away from the village slowly, sword wrapped in cloth. No one followed. No one stopped you. Behind you, the cedars swayed. The river sighed. The air smelled like morning. And somewhere far above, you felt the sun begin to rise. Not brightly, just enough. You don't know how far you walked that day, or where the road truly led, but you remember the sound of your own footsteps, and the feel of the sword at your side, warm but sleeping. And you remember this: not all monsters come with fury. Some arrive with mist, with silence, with expectation. And sometimes, the hardest thing isn't the fight, it's the waiting, the choice to stay, to stand still when others run, to witness what would rather not be seen. And so, you did, and the land remembers, and the sword still sleeps, waiting for the next dream to awaken it. And now, the serpent sleeps. The mist has lifted. The shrine is quiet. And the village, once haunted, breathes in peace again. You've walked with gods tonight, felt the weight of ancient silence, heard the bells in the fog, and watched a monster fall not with fury, but with patience. You've seen what lingers in forgotten forests, what waits beside rivers in the still hours of dusk, and what happens when someone, even just one soul, decides to stay, to listen, to witness. The serpent's name may fade, the mist may return, but the story remains. And now, it belongs to you. Let your breath slow. Let the weight of the tale settle gently in your chest. You don't need to remember every name, not every detail, just the feeling, the hush, the moment between the bells. And if the road calls to you again, if the next tale begins in silence, you'll know where to find us. If you enjoyed this journey, we hope you'll leave a like or subscribe for more quiet stories from around the world. And if there's a myth, a fable, or a piece of folklore you'd like us to explore, leave a whisper in the comments below. We're always listening, but for now, close your eyes, rest, and may the gods watch gently over your dreams. Good night.